Let's have conditional statements. Conditional statements are statements usually with the word if. The basic rule is that normally will or would can't be used in the if clause. At times, people unconsciously commit mistakes by putting will or would in the if clause, or what we call condition clause. Will or would should only be used in the main clause or result clause. So let's take a look at the example. If it rains, I will stay home. In this statement, if it rains is the if clause and I will stay home is the main clause. So this is the if clause or the condition clause, and this is the main clause or result clause. So let's tag it. If clause, main clause. So again, what's the basic rule? You cannot put will or would in this clause. All right? Sometimes we commit mistakes by putting the will or would in here. All right? The will or would should be in the main clause. Later, you will know all the types of conditional statements. Now, let's take a look at the conditional statement 1. The example, if it rains, I stay home. If it rains is the if clause and I stay home is the main clause. This means that I usually or always stay home when it rains. As you can see in this statement, the present form of the main verbs is used both in the if clause and in the main clause. This means that something automatically happens every time another thing occurs. Again, in this statement, we use the present form rains and then the present form also stay in the main clause. This means that I always stay home when it rains. Is it clear? Now let's have conditional statement 2. We'll use the same example but with different forms of the main verb. So let's have, if it rains, I will stay home. There is the word will this time in the main clause. So this is the if clause and this is the main clause. It uses rains here and will stay in the main clause. All right. This means I will stay home when it rains, say later or tomorrow. What does it mean? So it's different from conditional statement 1 because in conditional statement 1, when it rains or every time it rains, I automatically stay home. So all the time I do that. But in this case, I will only stay home when it rains later or tomorrow. So some other time I may not stay home. That's what it means. All right. So again, in this statement, the present form of the main verb is used in the if clause and the future form of the main verb is used in the main clause. All right, don't forget or remember that in spoken English, will is contracted to like this. All right, so You can say in spoken English or colloquial, if it rains, I'll stay home. Conditional statements of this type express a possible condition and a probable result. Okay? We got this. Now let's have conditional statement 3. If it rained, I would stay home, or you can say I'd stay home. The contraction I would be I'd. This means I am not home right now because there isn't rain. So you're telling something that is the opposite of the current situation. That's why we use the past form in the main or in the if clause, and then would plus the base form in the main clause. Instead of will, if you remember, conditional statement 2, we use will in here, but in conditional statement 3, we use would. That means past form and would are partners, and then present form and will are partners in the conditional statement 2, if you remember. Okay? Let's have another example of conditional statement 3. This time, let's use be verb in the if clause. Alright, so let's have, if I were a doctor, I would be rich. This means I am not a doctor, so I am not rich. In this statement, were is normally used in the if clause whether the subject is singular. So even if the subject here is I, we still use were because that is actually the rule. So it actually violates the subject-verb agreement. Conditional statement 3 actually violates the subject-verb agreement if you are familiar with the subject-verb agreement. And if you're not, you may as well watch the other video about the lessons on the subject-verb agreement. Alright? Remember also that in spoken English, would is contracted to like this. Alright, so this one is, instead of I would, you say I'd. Okay, so if I were a doctor, I'd be rich in spoken English or colloquial. Now, conditional statements of this type express only a hypothetical condition and a probable result. That's why we use the past form in the if clause and we use would in the main clause. Okay, that's basically the reason why we use the past form here and the would here instead of present form as compared to a conditional statement 2. Okay. By the way, there is an important note. Conditional statement 2 and conditional statement 3 don't differ in time stipulation because they both can refer to the present and future. Conditional statement 3 uses past forms to suggest a less probable, impossible, or only imaginary situation. Please bear with me because we still have 2 more conditional statements. So this is second to the last, conditional statement 4. If it had rained, I would have stayed home. Take note of the forms. Had rained and would have stayed home. Now, first is what it means first, okay? This means I didn't stay home because it didn't rain, okay? In this statement, we use past perfect, the had plus past participle form of the main verb in the if clause, and we use would have plus the past participle form of the main verb in the main clause. All right? Conditional statements of this type express a situation contrary to the reality in the past. So if conditional statement 2 and 3 talks about present or future, this time conditional statement 4 talks about something in the past. Okay, so you express contrary to that, all right, contrary to the reality in the past. That's why we use the past perfect form of the main verb in the if clause, had plus pp, and would have plus pp in the main clause. Now, the last but not the least, conditional statement 5. If it rains, stay home. This means, in case it rains, I am telling you to stay home. So, as you can see, in this statement, still you use the present form in the if clause, but this time the main clause is an imperative statement, whether it can be a command or request. And so, by the way, as you can see, there's no subject here because the subject is implied, which is you. So automatically your verb is in the base form, the present base form. All right, so that's all for the types of conditional statements. One more thing, a little bit, some technicalities. All right, so when it comes to written language, by the way, and informal, because I'm using I'll here, although you can use the formal usually in the written language anyway. So if the if clause is in the first part of your statement, as you can see, there is a comma after the if clause. But if the if clause is on the second part of your statement, there's no need for a comma. So if it rains, comma, I'll stay home. Or the same way you can express it this way, I'll stay home if it rains, without a comma. Now, let's get back to the time when Pia Wurtzbach answered the main question of the top 3 during the Miss Universe 2015 competition. So here's actually the transcription of Vila. All right, so it goes: to be a Miss Universe is both an honor and a responsibility. If I were to be Miss Universe, I will use my voice to influence the youth, and I would raise awareness to certain causes like HIV awareness that is timely and relevant to my country, which is the Philippines. I want to show the world, the universe rather, that I am confidently beautiful with a heart. Thank you. So as you can see, the second statement which Pia Wurtzbach used is actually a conditional statement. So if I were to be Miss Universe, I will use my voice to influence the youth, and I would raise awareness to certain causes like HIV awareness, blah blah blah. All right, now there's a little bit problematic in the conditional statement that Pia actually stated. Why? Because it's a mixed up. All right, it's a mixed up of 2 conditional statements. All right, so quite confusing because she mixed conditional statement 3 and conditional statement 2, by the way. So in here he used the past form paired with will, which is actually a violation of conditional statements. So if you use the past form here, you should use would here. Although she is actually consistent here because she used would here, but she used will here. So this is ungrammatical, by the way. And also the meaning would be different because since Pia Wurtzbach used conditional statement 3, it means that she was only stating hypothetical situation, which shouldn't be the case. Why? Because if you are to say just hypothetical when you're actually competing to win for a Miss Universe, then it doesn't make sense. All right, so instead what would be the right way to express the conditional statement that Pia Wurzbach would actually have done? All right, so it should be conditional statement 2, which is present form in the if clause and will or future form in the main clause. So instead of were here, it should be, if I am to be Miss Universe, I will use my voice to influence the youth, and I will raise awareness to certain causes. Why? Because you should be stating something that is possible. So there's a possible condition which can lead to a probable result, which is her winning the Miss Universe 2015. Okay? We got this.